Graham, I like Rooster from Rotmell Farm. We are farming 1,000 hectares in central Perthshire, just between Dunkeld and Ballinloig. We're all LFA, predominantly we're 130 hectares, which we classified as improved pasture. The other 30 is upland grazing, kind of rougher hillsides. And we have moved away from a set stock system in 2014-15 into rotational grazing, and that has continued to evolve into where we're now described as very much a mob grazing business, operating between maybe 40 and 180 days rest on paddocks, depending on what we're trying to achieve on the ground. There's so much to learn, there's so many mistakes we've got to try and make on this transition. I think we're in a place now where we have seen and done enough on the ground and understand what we're doing now to commit fully to build infrastructure across the entire farm to allow us to mob graze in big rotations with long rest periods for 12 months of the year. We haven't just jump into this in a heartbeat. There's been a gradual process and a gradual build as the grazing system and the management has evolved. And what I would tend to do is start off with a sort of 4 or 5 hectare block as an experiment and put a specific type of management through that and watch and evaluate and monitor and run soil chemistry tests and biological tests behind the scenes, as well as plant tissue analysis behind the scenes, just to make sure we actually think what we're doing is on track before we then go full hog and commit to a bigger infrastructure investment spend. The biggest challenge on Rotmell here is probably topography. I mean, it's a beautiful location and we live in a super great spot, but we're pretty close to the rock. So one of the challenges we've got here is trying to build a greater capacity within the soil. Climate is definitely changing, so one of the big drivers that I see as being really important is building more resilience into the farming system. So that's about managing colder weather, hotter weather, drier weather, far wetter weather. So our ability to manage heat and moisture, there's a lot of thoughts going into that. So we're starting to do a lot of work through blocks of trees at specific times of the year. We find that super beneficial for keeping animals a little bit cooler, and also in the winter months it helps create quite a lot of shelter. So what we're in essence what we're trying to do on the land is grow taller covers of grass. I think mob grazing, it's not a selfish business model. You've got to give a lot back to the environment and to Mother Nature to allow her to build that resilience and capacity within your landscapes. So we're trying not to graze off any more than 50% of the available biomass at any one time. When you watch the animals interacting with the pasture, because it's an interaction, that's really what's going on, and they tend to come into bigger covers and they move through it quite slowly, quite quietly, and they just pick off the tops of the plants, the seed heads or the taller leaves. They don't really they're not overly keen to graze round about the feet, and that makes a lot of sense. So the trick is to get the intensity of the grazing dense enough that the animals can eat off the best bits. The top 50% tends to be the more nutritious grass, and the bottom 50% that we're leaving, there's a high degree of that is now getting trampled back in, and that's creating that leaf litter which is covering the soils, and that's allowing us to retain heat, especially up in Scotland where keeping the soils warm is a bigger challenge. And it's also allowing us to maintain moisture in drier periods because there's no evaporation, and then the moisture that does fall, we're catching it up, we're slowing its runoff off the land, and we're actually giving it a chance to infiltrate down through the soils. And when we're digging holes, what we are definitely finding is more and more worms, and the root architecture is deeper down the soil profile. Again, it's allowing that hydraulic process, the hydrology to operate, and the worms are kind of moving up and down through the soil profile again. So again, we're getting oxygen that down, which gives life to the biology in the soil, and it's allowing moisture to drop its way down. This bit here really fascinates me because the yellowish stuff's obviously subsoil, the top stuff's the topsoil, so zone A, zone B, and you can see the worm channels there moving down through between these two zones. they're just falling to bits, but we're actually pushing. The topsoil zone is getting deeper and the subsoil zone is retracting deeper down electrical capacity within the soil. We need to grow topsoil. Here's a bit of a stone. See, it's getting broken down to getting released within the soil. So this is my little hobby. Keep digging holes. Much the whole place has just relaxed, opened up, the compaction's eased. Here's one of my biological friends. Root depths are getting deeper. I would like them deeper yet. I think that'll take a bit more time. There's so much we can probably do in a year. But the other wee thing that I'm finding quite fascinating, if we can pan around here a wee bit, hopefully I'll find it if I can dig away into the grass, is these massive clumps of vermicast or worm poo mucking around the base of this. Here's a red clover plant in here, and also way in here too. There's potentially that's a wee young grass plant root systems. Here's more vermicasting, worm dung. This is quite important because these guys worms have the ability to increase the calcium content in your soil as they eat the soil and it processes through them. Their gizzard, as it grinds up the soil and the microbes that they're eating, they create a kind of calcium deposit, and that then comes back out in the back end of the soil, which tends to have a pH of 7, which is neutral. And at pH 7, everything in the soil world just works. Each plant here is adding a little bit something different to the mix. It's mobilising a different set of, well, it's feeding, shall I say, it's feeding a different set of microbes and fungi, which in turn help mobilise the micronutrients in the soil, which means that the pasture here, and we know this for a fact because we're doing all the tissue analysis, is carrying twice the selenium, cobalt and zinc of the average pasture we have across the farm. So from a sort of mineral point of view, this pasture here, the fullest advanced region field we've got, is far stronger than the farm average. The journey that we've been on and what we've learned over the last 6 or 7 years, when I gaze into my crystal ball of an evening, I would like to be in 7 years' time in a place where this rotational mob grazing system is fairly well integrated with a lot of trees. I think silver pasture, shade shelter, warmth. There's a lot of benefit for having tree cover across the farm, as we're discovering. So I think getting far more trees into the landscape will be important, and I think getting enough infrastructure put in place to allow us to build taller covers of grass. And I mean build taller covers by managing time behind fencing. So in 7 years' time, I like to think that for 9-10 months of the year, the system will stand alone with no additional inputs or conserved feeding needing, that we can actually grow enough on farm, fair enough on farm, that I can quietly go out in the morning with the team, move stock, and everything just works.